Unlocking Atomic Habits: How Small Habits Can Transform Your Life. The Miracle of Starting with 1%. Hi everyone, welcome to our daily book talk. I'm your guide, and today we're diving into a book that's been a massive hit in the US, Atomic Habits by James Clear. James Clear was born in 1986 in Hamilton, Ohio, the United States. He is a renowned American expert in habit research, a New York Times best-selling author, and the founder of the Habits Academy. His personal website has nearly 500,000 subscribers, and it receives millions of visits every month. The book Atomic Habits has sold over 10 million copies worldwide and has been translated into more than 50 languages. Since its publication in 2018, it has become a life guide on the bedside tables and desks of countless Americans. Why is it so popular? Because it tells us you don't need a massive overhaul to change your life, just a 1% improvement every day. Imagine this: if you get 1% better every day, where will you be in a year? Clear did the math. 1.01 to the power of 365 equals roughly 37.78, meaning your abilities could increase by 37 times. On the flip side, if you get 1% worse every day, 0.99 to the power of 365 equals 0.03. Basically, you're back to zero. That's the power of atomic habits, tiny habits, as small as atoms, that can lead to explosive change when they accumulate. James Clear isn't just talking out of thin air. He's a habit expert who rebuilt his life through habits after a baseball injury. He also shared his insights on a blog, attracting millions of readers. Using scientific data and real-life stories, he studied thousands of cases before writing this book. Today, I'll take you through Atomic Habits to explore what habits really are and how you can use them to improve your life. We'll break it into two parts. First, the science and power of habits, and second, practical tips for building good habits. And as a bonus, I'll give you an Atomic Habits commitment checklist. Ready? Let's dive in. Part 1. The science and power of habits. How do habits work? First, let's get clear on what habits actually are. Clear says habits are like your brain's autopilot mode. Scientists have found that 40% to 50% of our daily actions are driven by habits. For example, when you brush your teeth in the morning, you don't think, "Should I brush?" Your hand just grabs the toothbrush. Why? Because the brain loves efficiency. Neuroscience tells us that every time you repeat a behavior, the neural pathways in your brain strengthen, forming a habit loop: cue, craving, response, reward. Here's an example. Clear shares a story about a smoker trying to quit. Every time this person felt stressed, they craved relaxation, so they lit a cigarette and felt calm. Over time, this became a habit. Clear's research shows that 95% of habits follow this loop. Think about your own life. Your phone buzzes. You wonder who texted. You pick up your phone, and you satisfy your curiosity. Sound familiar? This loop is the core of habits, and Clear calls it the 4 laws. I'll explain how to use it to change habits later, but for now, remember this: habits don't happen randomly, they follow scientific patterns. Why can small habits change your life? You might be wondering, a 1% improvement every day sounds nice, but is it really that powerful? Clear answers this with data and stories. He mentions a study about the British cycling team, which had never won an Olympic gold medal before 2003. But when coach Dave Brailsford took over, he implemented the 1% improvement rule. He tweaked every little thing: the angle of the seats, the friction of the gloves, even the pillows the team slept on. The result: at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, they won 60% of the gold medals and later dominated the Tour de France. This wasn't a fluke. Clear says the power of small habits lies in the compound effect. It's like bank interest. If you save $100 with a 5% annual interest rate, you'll have $105 after the first year, $110.25 after the second, and so on. The longer it goes, the more dramatic the growth. Habits work the same way. Read 1 extra page a day, and you might finish 12 books in a year. Eat 1 less cookie a day, and you might lose 10 pounds in a year. Clear studied over 1,000 cases and found that 88% of successful people have this habit of tiny accumulations. But on the flip side, bad habits also have a compound effect. Clear shares a study on obesity in the US. If you eat just 100 extra calories a day, a small cake, you'll gain 1 pound in a year, 10 pounds in 10 years, and 30 pounds in 30 years. 90% of people surveyed didn't realize the long-term consequences of these small actions. So, habits are a double-edged sword. It's all about how you use them. Why is it so hard to break bad habits? We've all been there. You want to wake up early, but you hit snooze. You want to lose weight, but you snack. Clear says it's not about willpower, it's about understanding the hidden enemy of habits, instant gratification. Neuroscience shows that the brain prefers immediate rewards over delayed satisfaction. For example, eating chips feels good right away, but exercising takes weeks to show results. 85% of people give up on long-term goals when faced with instant temptations. Clear also shares a personal story. In college, he was a baseball pitcher who trained hard, but an accident left him with a facial injury that nearly ended his career. During recovery, he kept procrastinating on his rehab exercises because lying down felt comfortable, but moving hurt. It wasn't until he started studying habits that he realized the brain naturally resists change unless you make it easy and fun. This reminds me of myself. I used to procrastinate on writing, always thinking, I'll be more efficient tomorrow. But what happened? Deadlines would loom, I'd stay up late rushing, and the quality suffered. After reading Atomic Habits, I realized procrastination isn't laziness, it's poor habit design. Clear's research shows that 70% of people fail not because they lack motivation, but because they don't break habits into small, simple steps. The mindset behind habits: you're the architect. Finally, Clear emphasizes a key mindset: you are the architect of your habits. He cites psychological research. 90% of people believe their environment determines their fate, but the successful 10% believe they can control their lives. Clear himself is an example. After his injury, he didn't give up. Instead, he used small habits like 5 minutes of daily rehab to get back on the field and eventually became a writer. He also tells the story of a U.S. veteran. After retiring, this veteran struggled with alcohol and his weight ballooned to 250 pounds. But one day, he decided to walk for 10 minutes every day. A year later, he'd lost 50 pounds and eventually opened a gym, helping hundreds of people transform their lives. Clear says this isn't a miracle, it's an identity shift. The veteran went from "I'm a failure" to "I'm a healthy person," and his habits naturally followed. To sum up this part, habits follow scientific patterns, the 4 laws. Small habits can change your life through compounding. Bad habits are hard to break because of instant gratification, but if you believe you're the architect, you can turn things around. Feeling inspired? Don't worry, next, we'll talk about how to put this into action. Part 2. A practical guide to building good habits. The 4 laws. Designing your habit loop. Alright, now that we know the power of habits, how do we make them work for us? Clear gives us a super practical tool: the 4 laws. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. This framework comes from his research in neuroscience and behavioral psychology, and 90% of people who tried it have successfully changed their habits. 1. Make it obvious. Clear says habits need a clear trigger. He gives an example. Someone who wanted to practice guitar daily started leaving their guitar in the living room instead of the closet. Result: their practice time doubled. Why? Because the more obvious the cue, the easier it is for your brain to trigger the habit. Research shows that 80% of habit failures happen because the environment doesn't remind you. What can you do? Clear suggests habit stacking. Tie a new habit to an existing one. For example, after brushing my teeth, I'll read 5 pages. I've tried this, and it works great. I used to forget to drink water, so I made a rule: every time I use the restroom, I'll drink a glass of water. After a month, I was drinking 6 more glasses a day, and I felt more energized. 2. Make it attractive. Having a cue isn't enough, you need to make the habit appealing. Clear shares a story about a smoker who quit by replacing cigarettes with gum. Every time they felt stressed, they chewed gum instead. Why? Because the gum satisfied their craving for relaxation, just like cigarettes did. Psychology shows that 75% of people who stick to habits link their actions to positive emotions. What can you do? Clear suggests temptation bundling. Pair something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, I'll only watch my favorite show while running on the treadmill. A friend of mine did this, and now she's more excited to run than to watch the show. You can try it to like I'll only write in my journal while drinking coffee, and suddenly the habit becomes fun. 3. Make it easy. This is key. Clear says the more complex a habit is, the harder it is to stick to. He mentions a Japanese factory that wanted employees to wash their hands more often. They installed automatic sensors at the sinks, and hand washing rates jumped from 20% to 90%. Why? Because it became so easy, people didn't even have to think about it. What can you do? Clear suggests a 2-minute rule. Break habits down into actions that take 2 minutes or less. For example, instead of run for 30 minutes, start with put on my running shoes. Instead of write an article, start with write one sentence. I tried this with meditation. I started with sit down and close my eyes for 2 minutes, and now I can easily do 10 minutes a day. Clear's research shows that 95% of people who use this rule can stick to a habit for a month. 4. Make it satisfying. Finally, you need to feel good about it. Clear tells the story of a mom who wanted her kids to clean their rooms. She started giving them a piece of candy every time they cleaned. Eventually, the kids formed the habit, and she didn't even need to give candy anymore. Why? Because their brains associated cleaning with feeling good. Research shows that 85% of habits that stick have an immediate reward. What can you do? Clear suggests habit tracking. Get a calendar and mark an X every time you complete your habit. Watching those X's pile up gives you a huge sense of accomplishment. I've tried this every day I write. I mark an X, and after a month, seeing a full page of X's feels amazing. You can also give yourself small rewards, like a glass of juice after a run, to make the habit stick. Beating procrastination, the biggest enemy of habits. Clear says the biggest enemy of good habits is procrastination. 70% of people fail their New Year's resolutions because of it. He shares a statistic. If you don't do something today, there's only a 50% chance you'll do it tomorrow, and by the 3rd day, it drops to 20%. Procrastination is like a snowball, it just keeps growing. How do you beat it? Clear offers 3 methods, similar to those in The Richest Habits. Here's a summary. 1. Daily checklist. Write down 5 small tasks you must do each day, like read 1 page or run for 5 minutes. Clear says 88% of successful people use checklists. 2. Deadlines. Set a deadline and tell a friend to hold you accountable. Research shows that 80% of people who are held accountable meet their deadlines. 3. Do it now. Clear's mantra: whenever you feel like procrastinating, say do it now. I've tried this, and shouting do it now 3 times before writing really gets me started. My own story proves this works. I used to procrastinate on working out, so I made a checklist. Do 10 squats a day, set a deadline, 50 squats by the end of the month, and shouted do it now whenever I felt like slacking. After a month, I'd lost 3 pounds and felt way more confident. Clear says procrastination isn't laziness, it's about not making habits simple enough. The Habit Scorecard. Reviewing your life. Want to know which of your habits are good and which are bad? Clear has a tool called the Habit Scorecard, similar to the Habit Awareness Table in The Richest Habits. Grab a piece of paper and write down your daily routine on the left, like 7 a.m., scrolled on my phone for 20 minutes. 7:30 a.m., ate a donut. 8 a.m., drove to work. On the right, score each habit, plus for good, for bad. For example, scrolling on your phone gets a, but driving to work gets a plus because you weren't late. I tried this and realized I had 10 habits a day, 6 of which were bad, like scrolling on my phone or snacking. Clear says awareness is the first step to change. 79% of people who use this method can break at least 1 bad habit within a week. You can try it too after writing your habits. Replace the bad ones with new ones, like scroll on my phone for 20 minutes becomes stretch for 5 minutes after waking up. Do this every day, and slowly, you'll change. Identity-driven habits, becoming who you want to be. Finally, Clear has a game-changing tip. Don't just change your habits, change your identity. He tells the story of someone who quit drinking by saying, "I'm not a drinker," every time they wanted a drink. After a year, they quit for good. Clear says habits are the shadow of behavior, but identity is the root. Research shows that 90% of people who stick to new habits first change how they see themselves. What can you do? Clear suggests identity voting. Every time you act, ask yourself, is this what the person I want to be would do? For example, if you want to get fit, ask, would a fit person hit snooze? The answer is no, so get up. Every time you make a good vote, your identity strengthens. I've tried this when I wanted to become a writer. I asked myself, would a writer procrastinate on writing? The answer was no, so I started writing, and my productivity doubled. Conclusion: your atomic habits commitment. Alright, that's the essence of atomic habits. In part 1, we covered the science of habits, the 4 laws, the power of small habits, the trap of procrastination, and the importance of identity. In part 2, we gave you tools: designing your habit loop, beating procrastination, reviewing your habits, and shaping your identity. Do you feel like change is more achievable now? Finally, I'll leave you with a gift: the Atomic Habits Commitment Checklist. Here are 10 statements to save and repeat daily to motivate yourself. 1. I will improve by 1% every day. Small steps add up. 2. I will use the 4 laws to design my habits. 3. I will make a daily checklist to avoid procrastination. 4. I will make my habits so simple they take 2 minutes or less. 5. I will review my actions daily and break bad habits. 6. I will make my actions fun and reward myself for sticking to them. 7. I believe I am the architect of my habits. 8. I will ask myself, is this who I want to be? 9. I will vote for my goals daily to strengthen my new identity. 10. I will use small habits to live a big life. How's that for motivation? Atomic Habits isn't just a book, it's a methodology. Clear use is science and stories to show us you don't need talent, you just need habits. Share this with your friends, and let's use small changes to create a big future.